and movies in general. So I felt like I was going to do that today. Take advantage of the newer camera to mess around with and just do something different for a change. For background music, gonna flip on some Iron Maiden, Matter of Life and Death. It was their latest record, so just come here. Yes, I go old-fashioned on this crap. Alright, so first I'm gonna do some honorable mentions. Just stuff that I don't feel is in my top list, but I definitely wanted to observe. And first on that list is Jurassic Park. I saw that right when it came out. I was fairly young. I don't remember how old I was, but it was actually the first movie that I can remember that scared me. I actually ended up dragging my mom out of the movie theater after I begged her to go watch it because the dinosaurs just scared the crap out of me as a kid. So I went back later and watched it again, made it all the way through it when it came out on video. And then I just kind of ended up watching it a billion times, and it's become one of my favorite movies. I know a lot of people wouldn't call it a horror movie, but definitely kind of ranks up as horror for me just because of my first experience with it. Another movie, once again, some people wouldn't consider horror, most likely, would be Gremlins. Another one of the earlier scary-ish movies I was introduced to. I loved this movie as a kid, and I've seen it a billion times, and it's a really cool movie. And next, for honorable mentions, Freddy vs. Jason. Mostly just out of the fact that I kind of love the old Universal movies and the Godzilla movies of, one character from one franchise or one set of movies versus another. And I think they really kept the spirit of that, so definitely got to put that on my list. Definitely, the movie was better than it had any right to be, so it definitely deserves mention. Even though a lot of people didn't like the story, it wasn't a good Friday the 13th movie, it wasn't a good Nightmare on Elm Street movie, but it was a good Freddy vs. Jason movie. And last on my honorable mentions, which these are in no particular order, by the way, but Stephen King's Pet Sematary. This is one I was just introduced to fairly recently by my girlfriend, and it's becoming one of my new little favorites there. It is, I don't know what it is about this movie, but I just love it, and there's some goofy little quotes in it that I just find very amusing. So that definitely makes the list. And, alright, so now on to the actual top 10, starting with number 10, The Orphanage. This is produced by Guillermo del Toro, and this is one of the few movies in a long time that has actually made me kind of tense and nervous. I mean, normally horror movies are just fun for me, and this actually kind of scared me a little bit. It's a great story. If the fact that it's subtitled turns you away from it, don't let that stop you from watching it, because it is a really, really great, scary, eerie movie, and the visuals are just really cool. And number 9, the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is a movie that I saw a while ago that didn't really make as much of an impact on me the first time I watched it. And then I kind of got into, I don't know if people have heard of the guitarist known as Buckethead, but he samples a lot of stuff from Texas Chainsaw Massacre in his music. He actually has, I know Bill Moseley, who played Chop Top, wasn't until Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, but he actually does some stuff with them musically. So, the more I got into Buckethead, the more I started to like Texas Chainsaw Massacre better. It almost would serve, Buckethead's music would almost serve as a alternate soundtrack to it. So, definitely become one of my favorites. This one is in here. Number 8, Halloween. I have to put in my top 10. It may not be the best slasher movie, just after all the years of newer, cooler ideas, but it was really the first. I mean, if you don't count Psycho and a couple others before it, it was one of the first times people did anything like that. And you have to appreciate it for what it is, and the acting in it is pretty damn good for a little independent film that was done. So, definitely have to list that one. Nightmare on Elm Street Part 3. Now, one thing I really wanted to do with this top 10 is, and what are we on, 7 now? I wanted to make sure I kind of hit the major franchises and picked at least one movie from them. I mean, they definitely all would fit my top 10, but I would call, stuff like Friday the 13th and Nightmare on Elm Street in my top 10 series for sure. But out of the Nightmares, this is definitely my favorite movie. I really, as much as people hate the goofy Freddy, I think there was the perfect balance of him being goofy and sadistic in this movie. So definitely a favorite of mine. Next, Hellraiser. This is number 6. Well, the movie is Hellraiser 1, but this is number 6 on my list. I put off seeing this movie for a while, actually, because I couldn't find it in stores, and I didn't want to order it online. So it was actually kind of later that I watched this, and I kicked myself after watching it for missing it for so long, because it is such a fantastic film. And just the effects in it, like the reversed melting wax when was Uncle Frank's being reborn from the floor, that just blew me away. I mean, even now it looks good. So, gotta love that movie. First 2 movies in Hellraiser were great. I kind of actually like the last one just because I'm a World of Warcraft nerd. So it kind of made me laugh, just the little MMO references. But the first 2 are definitely the best in that series. Alright, here's my obligatory Friday the 13th pick. It's a hard pick, but I'm going to say Part 6, Jason Lives. Which is really funny because I think Part 7 is the best looking Jason. Honestly, Part 2 holds a special place because it's the first one I ever saw. But I think I've seen Part 6 the most, and I think it was more accessible earlier to me. Just because of the humor in it, and the fact that it kind of encompasses everything. It has the zombie Jason, which I prefer over the living one. It has parts in a camp, but it doesn't take place completely in a camp. You leave the camp, you do other things, but you come back to it in the end, and I think that makes it a more enjoyable movie than a lot of the other ones. Plus, it's got some really good kills. So, I'm going to call that my favorite Friday, but Fridays in general I enjoy. Alright, what number are we on now? Let's see. It'll be 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, so this would be 4? Oh, we're in the final end of this. Dawn of the Dead, George Romero, the original one. I saw the remake before I saw the original, sadly enough. And this one is so goofy and offbeat, and there's the parts that are scary in it that are, zombies attacking people. And there's just goofball moments and the music in it that's just, the weird kind of polka music. And the fact that they're punching out zombies, which I just thought was so badass. It was almost unbelievably badass. Love that movie. And now the first horror movie to give me nightmares. Exorcist, once again, one of those classic movies. All the little flashes of the face of the devil. That creeped me out when I saw it at first. Actually, that was what I had nightmares about. It's a normal, boring dream with flashes of the devil's face all over it. Kind of disturbing when you see that. Yeah. One of the scariest movies of all time. I do agree with that statement. Really good movie. If it is not Catholic propaganda on some level. But, It's funny that it was actually banned for being satanic when it really is very pro-Catholic. Okay, getting off track here. Number 2. Army of Darkness. I love the Evil Dead trilogy. I have all of them. I've watched them all a bunch. Army of Darkness just makes me laugh. And maybe that's a bad reason puts it in my top 2 horror movies. But Ash is just awesome. Hail to the King, baby. Just one of the coolest action heroes I've seen in any movie. Horror, action, just plain action, or sci-fi, or anything like that. So, definitely has to rank high on that one. I always once again, there's a movie I didn't see until a couple of years ago. And I never understood the cult following because it looked like such a cheesy concept. And now I understand. Alright, number 1. Once again, people are probably going to be surprised I call this a horror movie, but the original Godzilla. This was, I love Godzilla movies. I own almost all the ones that have been released in the US. It is just fun. And the effects still kind of hold up, depending on how tolerant you are of some of the goofiness in it. But I love the Godzilla movies, and this one actually was pretty creepy. Just the air of it. If you've never seen it and you just look at the stereotypes of Godzilla movies, this one is very much Godzilla's a metaphor for atomic weapons and everything like that, and it gives it a very dark air to it, and just the way the characters are, they actually seem a lot more realistic and tragic than they are in a lot of other science fiction movies, especially Japanese ones. Alright, so that was my top 10 horror movies. I think I'm probably going to do a top 10 movies in general, maybe just movies that aren't horror movies, so I might do that later. So for now, that's it. See you later.